Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hochberg, could you quickly restate for the record what your default rate is?
Yes. Our default rate is 0.174%, and it's something we send to Congress every 90 days to make sure that Congress is apprised of the state of our portfolio.
To the best of your ability, could you compare that default rate to the rest of the commercial lending sector that operates in this same space?
Hard to get a precise benchmark, but it is, from my understanding, 2 to 3 times lower than general commercial loans.
To the best of your recollection, could you state for the record what your collection rate is on bad debt?
Well, it's partly reflected in our default rate, again, of 0.174%. And when something has gone in arrears, we have generally been collecting about 50 cents on the dollar.
And can you compare that to the rest of the commercial lending?
I don't have a precise benchmark for that, but my understanding is it's very much on the high side.
Do you recall off the top of your head the last year, or are you aware of the last year in which there was an actual transfer of taxpayer money to the Export-Import Bank in the form of a subsidy?
There has been none. We have transferred to Treasury $6.9 billion in the last 2 decades, and most recently in October of this past year, $675 million.
I was asking for the reverse transfer. When's the last time you received a subsidy, and are you aware that there have been any subsidies since the enactment of the 1990 Credit Reform Act?
There have been none.
Mr. Hochberg, you know that I've expended no small amount of time on this effort. I'm just one of many, as has my friend Congressman Fincher from Tennessee and others. We've met with you multiple times. We've met with the Majority Whip's office, the Chair's office, the Chair of the ranking member of the subcommittees, and I meant the ranking member, not the Chair, in an effort to develop legislation. Have you or any members of your office met with Chairman Huizenga of the subcommittee to develop or respond to or react to proposed changes and or reforms for reauthorization purposes?
No, I have not.
Mr. Hochberg, difficult question, a permutation on some of the line of questioning of Ranking Member Waters. Sir, do you believe that Congressman Aaron Schock's resignation and shame from this institution is a reflection on the entire House Republican Conference?
No, I would say not.
I don't either. Mr. Chair, or rather Mr. Hochberg, are you aware that China is developing a wide-body aircraft for sale into the commercial market in competition with both Boeing and Airbus?
Well, I have met actually with COMAC, which is the Chinese aircraft manufacturer. They already have 400 orders for a narrow body, and there have been reports they're working with the Russian aerospace industry to develop a wide body also to compete with Boeing and Airbus.
There have been reports to that effect. Do you believe it to be the case?
Oh, I have no reason not to believe it. As I said, I personally met with the CEO of the Chinese aircraft company, so I would have a firsthand impression of their activities.
So lastly, Mr. Hochberg, would you give us a little bit of information about how much larger the Export Credit Authority is in China? As a matter of fact, I think they have multiple entities, but educate us. How many export credit authorities do they have? And aggregating them, how do they compare in size to the Export-Import Bank?
Well, for one, China, as we know, is not the most transparent country in terms of its banking and financial dealings. They have 4 entities that provide export support. Sinosure, which is essentially provides credit insurance. That alone has been about $670 billion in the last 2 years. They also have the China Exim Bank. Informally, speaking with that chairman, they operate between $90 and $100 billion a year. There's the China Development Bank, and then there's a Chinese Agriculture Bank. So they have 4 entities that do that.
I lied. I got 2 more quick ones. First of all, yes or no, if you can, are we already losing business as a consequence of the cloud hanging over reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank.
Without question.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I'd like to request for entry into the record a letter from multiple governors, both political parties throughout this country, in support of reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank.
Without objection.
Thank you, sir.
That will be put into the record. I thank the gentleman. Now recognize the Chairman of the Financial Services Committee, the gentleman from Texas.